talking like a Marvel fan.
It's been awesome not having it all.
Who's that screaming about Catherine Han?
It's been awesome not having it all. We're excitable. It's undeniable that we haven't even noticed all the Easter eggs, Easter eggs. It's too late to research anymore because there's too much to recall. Thanks to all of us, including all of us, it's been awesome not having it all. And we mourn Sparky too.
So hello guys, we are doing our episode 101, which we're going to call WandaVision 101 because, you know, we're just cool like that. Thanks to
WandaVision.
10, that's even cooler. 101 Division.
Genius.
Genius. You're just really good today with your little theme tune and your song episode title. I'm impressed. Oh wow. Before we get into one, first of all, just to say, Marvel fans that are listening, we will put in the episode notes the point that you can skip to, because I know that you do like to come on the show and listen to our Marvel episodes and just skip all this talk. So that's absolutely fine, guys. We're not here to judge you. Just look in the episode notes and we'll tell you where to skip to. It's totally fine. But first of all, before we dig into that, let's ask how everyone is. What have you all been up to? Let's do quick fire round. Tell me in 60 seconds what you've been listening to, watching to, reading to. Why am I saying the word to so much? Laverne, we'll start with you.
Hello. What have I been? I've been listening to Neha's recommendation of Modern Love, the podcast.
Ooh.
Which has often resulted in me, you know, being teary-eyed on Zoom meetings and Teams meetings because it's so emotional.
It is.
Oh
It's
my
so
gosh.
good.
Like I'll listen to something about, you know, saying goodbye or, you know, death, and then I'm like, so the project plan today is like, it's just not great. I've been rewatching some of the old sitcoms that used to play on like Nickelodeon. So I'm on Sister Sister at the moment.
Oh
on
my
Netflix.
God. Where are
Go
you
home,
watching
Roger.
these?
Netflix. So I'm going to do it in order. So I'm going to do Sister Sister, then I'm going to do Moesha, and then I'm going to do Girlfriends.
Oh
So
my God.
that's what
Where
I'm-
does Smart Guy fall into that?
Yes, so Smart Guy is their younger brother. So that would be between Sister Sister and Moesha, I think.
He's
But
a
they don't have
smart
that yet.
guy.
Have you watched Girlfriends before?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, because I've just started watching it and I feel like I want to talk about friendships.
Well,
Yes.
I was going to
Okay,
say,
cool.
because I want to watch it and I think we should do a pod episode on it, because I've only watched a couple of episodes and I'm like in love. And I'm like, why didn't I watch this? And I thought, because I was 7 at the time and that's understandable, you know. I love how you watch it in order as well, because that's what me and Ari are doing. We're watching the Disney shows in order. And
Nice.
I remember you saying,
yeah, I just love it because I got to the end of like season 1 of That's So Raven. I was like, oh, now I can go into the Sweet Life of Zach and Cody. I was like, Ashen, tell us.
The most recent thing was all the stand-up to cancer specials. So the Bake
it's
Off
been a lot.
one and
they're
the
great.
Celebrity Circle, because I mean I love the Circle anyway,
Oh, same.
but the celeb one's got this extra layer because I think there's only 2 people being themselves. Like all the rest are
Interesting.
catfish. There's so many people.
Interesting.
But there's that added layer of, you know, someone's trying to be Gemma Collins and the other catfish is going, oh yeah, but we've got similar agents, so like I can ask her questions and like figure out, so that like there's like that
Hold
end of
on.
showbiz.
So they're pretending to be other celebrities?
Yes, yeah,
that's
all the
genius.
catfish are pretending to be so there's 2 loose women being Gemma Collins,
I'm
and
amazed.
Pete from Towie and Sam from Made in Chelsea are pretending to be Rachel Riley. Yeah, exactly.
Are they also Tories?
Unsurprisingly, politics hasn't come into a group show full of celebrities. Who'd have thunk? But yeah, it's just a good laugh. So that's pretty much all I've been watching, to be honest.
I love that, because I love The Circle too, and I feel like I only know 3 other people that watch it, one including yourself, and I was shocked because I thought it was. I love The Circle because it's a social experiment, and it was interesting to see how celebrities play into it. But me and you saw that there's going to be 4 series this year of The Circle.
And I still can't understand that, because the celeb one I understand. I knew they were filming another, like I think it's their 3rd season now, which to be honest makes sense because it's so easy to film in COVID times, because the entire premises of the show is you are isolated in your own little flat.
Yeah.
but I can't, unless they just filmed a metric ton of seasons.
I think they did. I think
Because you can't really put any more spins on the show, can you?
Yeah, because I think that's what they did with First Dates as well, which I'm going to get into in a bit. Neha, what have you been watching, listening to, reading, walking?
Oh, I wish I still had the brain capacity to read a book. Like, I feel like I've not been able to read anything for at least, I don't even know how long. So I've been watching, I finished watching Soulmates, Levan.
Oh my God,
So good.
So
And I think we've got like a sci-fi-y episode coming up, don't we?
We do, yeah. Like, we can't talk about anything on this show anymore because we're just going to do another episode on it.
We're going to do another episode on it. But it was, and I finished it, and like you were right, it was one of those watches. But no, it was really, really good. I'm back on the This Is Us bandwagon. I kind of fell off that bandwagon for a bit, but it really is like the best show. So I recommend This Is Us. It's on Prime. And I feel like listening to, so I mostly listen to things I feel like when I'm on my walks, like my solo walk. So I've been listening to mostly Ari Lennox right now on a loop, because she's just really getting me in the mood. And also the podcast Why Won't You Date Me?
Yes. Oh my God, I'm obsessed.
With Nicole
I am
Byer.
such a massive Nicole Byer stan. Like,
I
yes.
love her, but I didn't even know she had a podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I
Got
didn't
like
either.
20.
Because
She's got like
is my
20
favorite thing in the
podcasts.
whole world.
Don't give me ideas.
No, it's really good. It's essentially talking about dating and being single, and it's just so funny.
I love the sound of that. I love that women are talking more about dating openly now, and it's not something that like you should be ashamed of. I just love how it's like just honest and open. Lauren, round us off. What have you been watching?
I've been watching that show, Your Honor.
Oh, tell me more about this, because everyone's been talking about this, including my nana.
Me and my mom have been watching it, and it's so stressful. It's like the most stressful thing I've watched in a long time. But it's really good. Like, it's really interesting because it's like, basically the premise is like Bryan Cranston is a judge and his son has like really bad asthma, and he like has like an asthma attack and tries to grab his inhaler and hits somebody when he's driving at the same time. There's this like shady thing of like, you know, he's a judge, but his son's committed a hit and run and like all this kind of stuff. But it's really stressful. So if you're not really in the mood to watch something really stressful, don't watch it, because it is the most stressful thing I've ever experienced in my life. Oh, I've been also like Ashton, I've been watching some of those stand-up to cancer things, but mainly that the Bake Off, and then that Stand Up and Deliver one with like the celebrities trying to become stand-up comedians, which again is one of the most cringy things you'll ever watch in your life, especially Curtis Pritchard trying to do comedy, which is like, I mean, I would rather pull my own eyes out than watch it again. But like, it is really, really good, because it's like they have like a Tory politician doll and Curtis Pritchard and like, what do you call him, Sean Ryder. Do you not know who Sean Ryder is?
I have no idea any of those people are.
Sean, was he on I'm a Celebrity one year?
He's from the Happy Mondays. You know the Happy Mondays, and he sings that song Dare with the Gorillas.
Because I've been really busy with work this week, I've decided to start the Vampire Diaries again. I'm up to season 7. I've been watching this show for literally... No, sorry, that was very misleading. I got up to season 7, so I'm watching season 7. I've been watching this show literally for 12 years now. I don't know if I'm ever going to finish it. I think my grandkids will be like, Granny, why are you still watching that Stefan guy? Let him go. So I've been watching that. I've been watching Teen First Dates. So First Dates is the Channel 4 TV show, which I loved. And they've done a teen version, and it is the sweetest, awkwardest thing you'll ever watch. It's literally 16-year-olds to 18-year-olds dating each other. They've never been on first dates before, and it's just so funny to watch young people, and like they just talk about the silliest things, like, what do you get from McDonald's? Oh, I get some chicken nuggets. Oh, I get a Big Mac. Do you like Big Macs? No, I don't like Big Macs. What flavour milkshake do you get? And I just thought, to be 16 again, and that's the only thing you ask on a date, whereas now you'd be like, so are you wanting to have babies in the next 2 years? Do you have a good background? Have you got a criminal record? What are your family like? Do you have a house? Are you a homeowner? Do you pay your taxes? Like, the stress, where did it come from? Also, last night I watched that film Moxie by Amy Poehler.
Mm-hmm.
No spoilers. I'm dying to watch it, but I haven't seen it yet.
They all die in the end. It's really sad.
What kind of Rogue One crap is this?
Double spoiler there. No, I really loved it, and it's not perfect, but I think it was. I really love films. Like after this, I think this week it's been a terrible week to be a woman. It's been so hard. We've gone through International Women's Day. We've then had to put up with people not believing someone that's come out about being suicidal. We've then had to put up with people not believing those that have been sexually harassed. We then have to. People have told us not to walk home in the dark. It's been a really tough week for women, and I watched that, and I feel like it was a really lovely finish to that. And it was just because I hate films that talk about awareness of sexual harassment. Like, I want to see action. Like, I feel like we've had enough talking. Like, we know it's there, we know it happens, it's happened to us, but we want to see what happens after that. And it was just really lovely, and I thought they did a good job. And I'd love to see a spin-off, because there was a character in it that was a side character that a lot of people have argued should be the main character, and I love to see her like in a college setting with that kind of vibe. But yeah, it's on Netflix, so give it a go. Should we get into our episode now, guys?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. So we're going to go through a little bit of an episode guide with WandaVision and basically just explore what's happening. But before we get started, when WandaVision was announced, were any of you actually excited, or were you quite skeptical?
No.
Lavern's shaking her head big time here.
This was the thing. When I saw the rollout, you know, when they do that big like Steve Jobs Apple type,
Oh my God, yeah.
and then they show all the logos. So yeah, excited for that, not excited for that, yeah, excited for that. So I disregarded it almost immediately, and I just think to myself, what an idiot you are. I literally was like, oh yeah, that's happening. And because it was one of the first ones happening, I was like, oh, I'll just wait for Falcon and Winter Soldier, I'll just wait for Loki, I'll just wait for Black Panther 2. Like, I just didn't care. And now I'm literally kicking myself because it was like an emotional roller coaster, and I can't stop thinking about it even a week later. So yeah, it's weird. It's so crazy.
Neha, you said the same as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I agree with Laverne. I thought it was just like a filler, like they were just biding time until the other stuff came out. And I remember when that trailer came out, and it started, but the whole trailer was based on like the 1950s. It was all in black and white. It was very sort of like, it was a sitcom, but I was like, what is this? This does not make any sense to me. But yeah, I'm kicking myself too, because it was so good.
It did look like the early trailers. I just thought, oh, they're just going to put that on for the sake. I think I even made a joke that Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany must have had extra time in their contracts that they needed to run out, and this was just going to be like a filler to kind of get through. And I was more excited, like Laverne said, like about Falcon and the Winter Soldier, about Loki. So I didn't pay it any mind, even up until it came out. Like, I didn't watch it till the second week, because the first two episodes got released at the same time, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys watch it straight away?
I watched it the first week, but not immediately. I was kind of in between excited and not excited, because watching the movies, I always loved Wanda. And I kind of didn't love the whole WandaVision thing, like, because I just thought Vision was so boring and I just didn't care for him at all. But I was like, I'll watch it, because like not else to be at, to be fair. I mean, it really made me love Vision, which like I didn't think could happen, because he was on the bottom of my list of favorite Avengers, like right above Hawkeye. And like, no, I loved it.
He's hot.
Well, that was your words, not mine.
It's a hot robot.
We're gonna dig into this. So we start with episode 1. The WandaVision has a very meta style to it, a little bit like Scream. So each episode has a name that kind of reflects a TV show setting. So episode 1 is called Filmed for a Live Studio, set in the 1950s. It's very Dick Van Dyke style. So each episode has like a reference style, which I think is really cool. So there's no prior knowledge to any of this. We are thrown straight into things, the madness. And that's probably why there's a lot of confusion, because I was watching it and I remember tweeting after watching the first 2 episodes, I was like, what the fuck is going on with this? Like, are they superheroes anymore? Is it just 8 weeks of like, they're doing this experiment kind of thing? And it's so strange, and it just feels very eerie. And we start getting these adverts straight away. So the first advert we get is the Toastmate advert, which we later find out is the bomb from her childhood. And I tell you now, watching it back, it feels so eerie. Like, I really felt uncomfortable. It was just really eerie. And the tagline of that is, forget the past, this is your future. And the first episode is very, it's silly goodness, it's daydreaming, it's funny jokes. But then we have the first kind of instance where things don't seem right is when Vision's boss starts choking and Wanda breaks the fourth wall and says, Vision. And on that, like at the end, it zooms out and you see someone working at the table and you kind of ask yourself the question, who's watching? And I don't know about you guys, but the impression I got from the first episode is that Wanda's trapped and someone's controlling her. What did you guys think?
Yeah, the same.
It was the fact that she very clearly didn't understand, and there were moments where they literally just showed her face when she just looked confused, and you were like, okay, well, if you don't know what's going on, then you must be, you can't be the instigator here. How can you? Because you've got no clue of the plan. And especially in that sort of second episode where they keep sort of saying like, for the children in unison, and it's very like that, there's that really ominous vibe. You just assume she must, and like when Vision's in the office, and like he's asking, what do we do? He's like, oh, you're crunching numbers. You're a cog in the machine. I was like, oh, okay. So like, because that's the other thing. I couldn't figure out where this was in the timeline. I was like, maybe this is set before Endgame and Infinity Wars. Like maybe he's still alive. Like maybe they're using him for something and he's still alive. This was something that just wasn't referenced, because we know Marvel loves the cheeky retcon. Like if they mess
that's
something
a good
up.
point, because this could have easily been like in the middle of Infinity War or before Endgame. So
yeah, exactly. And I was like, oh, okay, so maybe like they're using his computational powers for some sort of Hydra-based scheme, because that office seems really vague. And so, yeah, I was fully set. And again, when they do the radio bit, they're like, who's doing this to you? I was like, oh, okay, so they're both trapped in some sort of simulation for nefarious purposes. Like I was fully bought into this whole, they're the victims of something.
Yeah.
Up until, later on.
And I love that. I love that they kind of make us feel not sorry for them, but like, oh no, what's going on? The second episode is called Don't Touch That Dial. So it's set in the 1960s. There's a bit of like a Bewitched vibe to this. I loved watching Bewitched as a kid. I loved it. It was so good. It was always on Channel 4 if I was off school sick and I'd just watch it. So this is where we start to see some changes. So Geraldine enters, who we know is Monica Rambeau. Why did she choose the name Geraldine?
I don't know. I thought it was an Easter egg or something. So
maybe she's just like a big Peter Kay fan.
But yeah, Teyonah Parris plays Monica, and I loved her in Mad Men. So she played Dawn in Mad Men, and as soon as she came on screen, I was like, oh my God, amazing. So she enters. You've got the Dottie character here, who is very suspicious of Wanda, and after rewatching it, this is quite a plot hole because it's never explored. Laverne, you're shaking your head. Tell us more.
Yeah, I was trying, what it's like being a Marvel fan. You're trying to read into every word, every reference, every color scheme. So I was like, oh, she's definitely done something, or she is like a secret character. But then I realized that if it was representative of that time, you always did have that bitchy housewife type character. I think it was just that something of that time, unless we get season 2 and she really is Mephisto, which everyone always keeps saying.
They did say that they kind of used her as like a red herring a little bit, because I think everybody was very like, Agatha Harkness is gonna be, so I think they were trying to make it seem like she was something. And then obviously then, as Laverne was saying about the color schemes, she had like yellow roses, and then people thought that meant that she was like, I can't remember the name, another superhero.
I didn't notice that.
Storm or something, I think.
Emma Frost.
Emma Frost. Oh, another. We'll get onto the X-Men shortly. But yeah, Ashton, like you said, like for the children, but there's no children in this episode, and they say it almost cult-likey. So it's very strange. We also get a couple of intrusions from the outside in this episode. So we have the helicopter first of all, which appears in colour, but is changed to be reflective of the 1960s, which we later obviously know that Jimmy and Monica send into Westview. We then also have the beekeeper suit from the drain. Now, this is the first time we see Wanda re-edit the show. So she says no, and then it goes back and it just changes. Now, that's the first glimpse we get of maybe she is controlling this, or maybe someone else is controlling it. Because what I thought is maybe she's realizing, oh my God, what's going on? And then someone's cut it back to kind of get her back into the kind of, what do you call it, daydream. But yeah, that's the kind of first kind of instance we have. And of course, we have the radio message. So there's 3 instances in this that there's people trying to break in. So you can kind of see that now we know what the story is. She's trying to lose it a little bit. And maybe that's why she gets herself pregnant, because she's panicking. What do we think about that?
Maybe. I hadn't thought about it like that.
Because when I saw the beekeeper guy, I thought, is this the villain? Like, I wasn't really, I don't know, I wasn't thinking that deeply about things at the start. I was like, what's going on? Oh, that must be the villain. Oh, it's not? Okay. Like, it's like as far as my little brain could handle.
That's fair enough. The advert in this episode is the Strucker ad. Strucker is the name of the scientist who worked on the twins. I can't remember what he says in this, but essentially it's just that.
He'll make time for you was like the proper tagline, which was really strange.
He'll make time for you. I didn't pay attention to these adverts when I was watching them. I just thought they were like, oh, this is fun and silly, not realizing that they actually are a massive Easter egg leading up to things. So episode 3, now in color, we are in the 70s. And I have to say, they are so hot in this episode.
Yeah.
So hot. Oh my God.
It is unreal. Like everything about this episode, the furniture, the clothing, the hair, the eyelashes is just gorgeous. It's just unreal. They really do look their best here. Again, we've got more breaking off Wanda's dream. So Herb is cutting through the wall, cracks start appearing for Vision. He speaks to her and then she re-edits the show, so it removes itself. There's quite a lot going on here, obviously, and it will lead into, we'll just talk about Monica in a little while. What did you think about the children's names? Because I thought, because obviously she wanted Tommy, as it's a nice classic American name, which we obviously later find out is because she really wants that all-American dream lifestyle. And I love that as an immigrant, she says that. And I think a lot of people talk about the American dream, and I think the American dream means more to immigrants than it does to Americans. We won't talk about the fact that Americans are immigrants, but yeah. So it kind of delves into that, I think, a little bit. And then he talks about Willie for William Shakespeare. I don't really know what that's about, really. But what did you think about Agnes and Herb here? Because they have that moment when they're talking. And obviously we know the true effect of Agnes. What did you think what was your thoughts when you watched this for the first time? Did you start to feel that suspicious of Agnes, or were you still suspicious of Wanda, or were you suspicious of Geraldine?
I think by virtue of the fact that they had Catherine Hahn playing Agnes, I knew she would somehow be a major player. So I don't know whether that meant I was suspicious of Agnes, but I knew that they were probably going to lift the lid on something at some point. That conversation was really weird between Agnes and Herb, though. Like, I didn't really know what to make of it. It felt a little bit like they knew, like, that this whole thing, everyone else was completely conscious of it apart from Wanda and Vision, or at least at this point. But yeah, it was really weird. I didn't really know what to make of it. It just did that thing that the show does really well. It switches the mood and makes everything really eerie for like 5 seconds.
People don't understand how Herb understood what was going on, though.
I don't think he did, because I mean, when I originally watched it, I was still running with that theory of they're in some sort of simulation. So I figured they were like Hydra agents and they were kind of growing a bit of a conscience. But rewatching it, I realized this is the start. This is when you actually start to see Agatha begin to actually insert herself into manipulation, because when, obviously to skip ahead, when she says she isn't in Westview originally, she arrives when she senses the power. So I think this is the point where she starts to figure what's going on. And this is when you actually start to see Vision have doubts. Because she's the one who plants the seed. This is the moment where she plants the seed. And, you know, she's just using Herb as a prop, essentially, because she's like, I need a reason to be here, to sow that doubt into Vision, to start figuring out what's going on.
I kind of got like the opposite of it when I was rewatching it, because I felt like Herb was trying to say something and then Agnes kind of stops him, because I think she didn't really want Vision to go too far ahead yet, because she wanted more time to observe what Wanda could do. But like initially watching it, I just was like, again, sort of like something's weird. but I really do recommend rewatching it because it's so interesting.
It
On a
really
second
is.
watch as well. But it is like, it's definitely when Agnes starts to really insert herself. But I took a different view of it. But it's just. And then, but I was really suspicious of Geraldine then because they were sort of like, oh, well, she's not from here or whatever.
Yes.
And then obviously
Yes.
whenever like Geraldine's speaking to Wanda, she's sort of like, I don't know why I'm here. I don't know I can't remember exactly what she says. Like,
Yeah, so this is the point as well. I thought that maybe Geraldine was part of the experiment that was that was happening on Wanda. But just to touch on Agnes as well, I think she starts to get more involved because obviously Wanda makes herself pregnant, and that's a lot of force to create two new beings, which we obviously discover later on. So I think that's probably why she starts to slowly manipulate Vision to test things out, because she's kind of doing a social experiment herself, Agnes. But yeah, with Geraldine, this is where I started to question whether Geraldine was the bad guy. And obviously she questions the necklace with the sword logo, which we didn't know was sword at the time. She brings up Pietro for the first time. She brings up Ultron. It's the first time that Avengers is mentioned in WandaVision. And obviously we don't see what happens to Geraldine. She just disappears, which we're going to get to the end in a moment, because I just think it's one of the best uses of an end song in TV. I just think it's so good.
I have the exact same thing written down.
It's just so good. But just to touch on the commercials, the commercial in this episode is for Hydra Soak, which is about escaping reality, which I think is another red herring, because Hydra experimenting? And also as well, the Doctor in this episode, when he's talking to Vision, says small towns, hard to escape. Just a little Easter egg there. But Tommy and Billy are born. Geraldine questions Wanda. What did you guys think of Geraldine in this moment? Because we have no idea who she is. I mean, unless you looked on IMDb, like many people did, and saw that she was credited as
like
Monica
me,
Rambeau.
I didn't even do that. I fully believed in the Marvel end credit thing, so I waited until they gave all the credits for the dubbing in different languages, and it credited the dubber as Geraldine / Monica Rambeau, and I was
That's right. I did that.
fuming. I was like, oh, thanks.
I remember when she was announced, when they announced Tiana Paris to play Monica Rambeau, so I knew
I
who
can't
she
remember
was.
that being announced. I'm terrible.
It was, I feel like it was in the spotlight for a couple of days and then just kind of went
And
under
then
the
Marvel
radar.
realised what they did and went, oh, quick, put it back under the carpet.
So I knew who she was, which, was frustrating. I wish I didn't know.
I have to say, how you say Geraldine makes it a much nicer name than Geraldine's here, who just get Geraldine.
Jardine.
Or you
It sounds like you're saying John Dane.
John Dane.
You say like Geraldine, like you pronounce it properly. We'd be like Geraldine.
Do we even know anyone called Geraldine?
Well, a lot of Geraldines here.
Like I wouldn't. I know like there's a lot of feminized names that are originally male, but I would never look at the word Gerald and think, let's make a feminine approach to this. Geraldine.
I never even copped on. That's where that came from.
Yeah, Josephine.
Oh my God, I am
Harrison. No,
stupidest human.
Henrietta.
Paula.
That's a whole other episode. We're getting into
a lot
it.
of Geraldines.
Wanda.
I know.
So the screen widens at the end of this episode to kind of take us back to reality. Geraldine is thrown into the outside, and Cheer Up Sleepy Jean plays, and it just sounds so eerie.
Oh, it's so good.
Honestly, this show, it does such a good job making you feel so uncomfortable with the unknown. And we then go into episode 4, which is actually, when looking at the ratings, a lot of people stopped watching after. So they watched the first 2 episodes and they stopped watching the third. And then episode 4 came out and it was right back up there on the ratings, because people probably thought, hang on a minute, I want to know what's going on.
I think initially they were supposed to drop the first 3 in the same week, weren't they?
Really?
I think I read
That would have made more sense.
But then because of the COVID and the delays and everything, and they were trying to get everything, because it was the same. It was supposed to be 10 episodes, but because they would have had to have a week break before the finale, and they didn't want to do that, so they just crammed it all into one episode, because there was supposed to be more of Darcy and Monica and Jimmy.
I kind of do feel that though. Like I again, like on the rewatch, I was going, oh, when's that happening? When's this happening? And it all literally happens in that last episode. Like it feels like it. And again, that makes more sense for 3 episodes to drop, because the first 2 are a lot of world building and not a lot of explanation. And for some people who are very used to binging, that can be frustrating, because I think a lot of people are very used to getting all their answers straight away now. So that 4th episode where you kind of pull back the curtain, I think is a big it's a big draw. I can see why the numbers fluctuated the way they did.
It's interesting because there was an article that was released midway through the season where someone said WandaVision isn't slow, we've just forgotten how to watch television. And I think I said this recently, where this is the first time since I don't know when, maybe even Game of Thrones, where I've watched a TV show and formed a community around the people that are watching it. Like the 5 of us spoke each week about things, although it was very funny because we wouldn't ever say too much because we didn't know who had watched it when. I mean, I'd woke up early to watch this show. I've not done that for years. It's but yeah, you build that community, and we're going to talk a lot later on about how COVID affected this show in more ways than you think. So we'll get to that, don't worry. So episode 4 is called We Interrupt This Program. Again, I just love the titles. It's just fantastic. This episode is completely out of Westview. Well, it is on the outskirts of Westview. So this is post-Endgame. Do you remember that, guys? Do you remember that film?
Crazy, right?
Remember that film, that little film, Endgame? It gave me Walking Dead vibes the start of this episode, because she wakes up in the hospital and she doesn't know what's going on. But it did make me think, because obviously people just start appearing wherever they were 5 years ago. Where were you guys 5 years ago today? Like, if you just reappeared again, how confused would you be? I was trying to work out where I was.
What year is that?
I know that's what I'm trying to do the maths of. Is that 2007?
2016.
2016.
I have an A level in math, and I took -5.
2016, I was an intern for a luxury jewelry company.
Oh, 2017, I released an album.
Yeah, but that's 4 years ago, Lauren. We don't come on this show and brag.
Sorry, I thought it was still 2017, 2016. I don't know what I was at.
2016, I would have been at university. In my first year.
Yeah,
those halls got demolished, so that would have been like
very
if
awkward.
I smacked today, I would have just fallen like 4 stories.
4 stories, yeah. It's weird.
Just on the subject of the snap, and I'm gonna completely draw in another series to frustrate everyone. But if this theory, which I actually loved, like I really hate, it's called the blip. Such a stupid name.
I know why.
I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with blip theory. Like Spider-Man, really. Like I want a series on those 5 years. When they redusted or undusted, whatever the term is, the idea is they came back at the point of when they were dusted.
Yeah.
So that means Wanda was in Wakanda, as was Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Are they going to address this? Because there must have been a point where they all redusted together. So I'm like, did someone not take a minute to be like, hey, is she okay? Where's she going?
Yeah, because I'm just thinking of Endgame, because I think Doctor Strange magics them all there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, was there not like a group chat? Like, hey guys.
I always wonder. So after that final battle, how are you getting home? Do you want to get something to eat? Like, I always wondered, like, what was the who saved mankind? Like, what? Because they touched on it on the first Avengers when they went to the Schwarm.
They did. They had like the burgers.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, that, because it's so true. What do superheroes do when you have completed what you need to complete? I love that. Like, you've got every superhero ever there. Valkyrie, you've got Ant-Man. What's everyone up to later? Who's having afters? Like, it would have been so much fun.
Having a big old nap.
Yeah, I'd be like, I'm going to bed, guys. Well, I'll tell you what they weren't doing, attending Black Widow's funeral, but we'll get back onto that later. So we are thrown into Monica Rambeau, and we have another grief story. So she obviously finds out that her mother is dead, and she does what any boss babe does and goes straight back to work. So she walks up into Sword HQ, which I did write down what sword stood for, but I could be asked. It's a silly old word, and, you know.
Shield, isn't it?
It's just basically Shield, which was basically Hydra.
I think one's like to do with Earth and one's to do with like aliens. I think that's the.
And she says at some point, like, creativity got taken out. I was like, oh, budget cuts, happens to us all. So we meet director Tyler Hayward for the first time, and then we have James Woo that returns from Ant-Man. Randall Park is fantastic. I absolutely adore him, and I love that he's in the MCU, and I love that he's got a big part in this. Interesting part with this is he mentions that the reason why he's a rescue is that he has a witness protection person inside. Do we ever find out who this is? And I sieved my way through this episode.
It has to be Ralph. Why would he
Who
laugh?
has a picture of themselves like that?
Why would he laugh at his surname if it was like, he was like,
Oh yeah.
I thought it might be the mailman. Oh, okay. Because
I didn't even think of
'cause
Ralph.
I think it was like, I think it actually is in some way.
Quicksilver.
Actually.
Yeah.
We'll get onto that.
I agree. I thought, why would you have a picture of yourself to know your name? I don't have a picture of myself.
I thought he was like an actor because it looked like a headshot. I thought he was like a
Oh
struggling
my
actor.
god.
My mind is blown today.
I think he picked that name like because it made him laugh.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of boners here. Geraldine Boner probably is in my town for all we know. The only thing I would like to point out in this episode is whenever Monica goes back to Sword, you see like the sign on the wall of her mother, which is Maria Photon Rambo. And I think Photon is actually who Monica becomes.
Photon.
Mhm.
Yeah, that sounds about
So I was
right.
like, that's cool.
I like that.
But I do
like
think
that.
it's Ralph. I think that's absolutely who that is.
Interesting. I love it. We also have another returning star in this episode, which is Darcy from Thor, who I'm so happy about because I love Kat Dennings, and I think that the thing with Thor is that the first film I loved the first Thor.
Same.
The second film,
Didn't
let's
happen.
not talk about it. But then the third film, they just got rid of all these female characters, which was really disheartening and a shame. So I'm glad that she's back. There's a lot of references here. So she asks everyone who they are. Then she refers to it as a full clown car. And obviously later on, we know that she does turn into a clown. I love the part as well where someone calls her Miss Lewis and she says, Dr. Lewis. I'm like, yes. You do that. So a lot of things happen in this episode. We obviously find out that it is a sitcom. We don't know what's going on. Obviously, Monica in the last episode said it's all Wanda. It's all Wanda. We finally see that Wanda is controlling the show and cracks are very much appearing for Vision. And she also sees that, she looks at Vision and she sees when Ultron killed him, when Thanos killed him. Do you remember Thanos? Remember that guy?
Life out of me. Scared me so much.
Very scary. So a lot happening in this episode, and it's basically there's no commercial, there's no it really is an interruption in the program, which I quite loved. And that leads us on to episode 5, where a lot happens. So episode 5 is called On a Very Special Episode, and it is very special indeed. This is the 80s, and it's very much based on Growing Pains and Full House, which is funny because obviously Elizabeth's sisters were in Full House. Agnes really starts to stir things up in this part. So we have that comment where she says, shall I take that again? Which obviously causes a lot of confusion.
So eerie, yeah.
So strange. And honestly, we speak a lot because I know there was a lot of rumors at the start that the Multitude of Multiverses or whatever that film's called is going to be a horror. I honestly feel like there are such thriller tones in WandaVision that you really do feel uncomfortable and not knowing what's going on, especially when the protagonist is the antagonist as well. Because we're on episode 5 now. We have no villain. There's no villain. We don't know who is the good guy or bad guy, apart from Taylor Hayward and his dodgy hairline.
I was going to say, like, this is the episode where he sort of is established as one of the villains. Just there's that scene where he goes, "Oh well, she destroyed this, she destroyed that. She's not got a name." And rewatching that, I was like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah,
this is the point where he starts to manipulate the narrative as well, because he claims Vision's body was stolen in this episode.
we get a lot of that. Cracks are definitely appearing. Do you think Agnes screwed the twins up?
No, I think Wanda did it because, like, going back to that point you were saying that she gets involved because it shows that she's capable of like pure creation. The boys from the start are aware of her powers and they're immune to her powers. Like, as babies, they won't cry, and then they're very autonomous. They do what they want compared to everyone else who is under her control, which makes me think they must have come from her to have that immunity.
That's a very
and to
good
be
point.
so aware of everything, because they literally say, "Oh, you can undo death, you can do this." and they've never seen it. They
I
are
love
very
that
aware.
though as well, because I do generally think that kids do believe their parents can do anything if they have good parents, of course. And I love that idea. Is like, well, you can fix it. You can fix it. It does remind me of when my dad replaced my younger sister's hamster about 6 times, and it really didn't give her a good element of life and death.
This opened a wild big question that I had then throughout the whole show.
Oh,
Because
share.
Agnes says, I've wrote this down, kids, you can't control them no matter how hard you try, right? And then later on, I think it's in the last episode, Dottie says, please let my daughter out of her room, right? So it begs the question of, can actually Agnes really control children in general, or is she choosing not to control them because she doesn't want to hurt them? But then in the Halloween episode, they're like everywhere. And then I have so many questions about that.
Me too. When we get on to the Halloween episode, there's a lot going on that kind of challenges who is in control, whether Agnes is still doing things in the background and whether she's doing things. The credits of this episode are absolutely lovely. Elizabeth and Paul were actually meant to sing this theme tune, but they ran out of time because of production. Because obviously Catherine Hann sings her theme tune later on in the show, but they were meant to sing this theme tune and they didn't have time, which is a shame. Vision as a baby, though, did make me feel quite uncomfortable.
So
Best thing I've
weird.
ever seen.
Not good.
Very, very strange. So obviously, Ashton, as you mentioned, we confirm in this episode that Wanda doesn't have a nickname. And I actually texted you, Lauren, because I was like, but she's called the Scarlet Witch. And you said, no, but she's not. Take your time.
So fun. Are you mocking me or are you mocking Kevin Feige?
Is his surname pronounced Feige?
Yeah.
I thought it was Feige.
Yeah, so did I. Oh my God, I feel so
How
stupid.
embarrassing. How embarrassing for the two of you. I am so broke dead for you.
Please, it's not like he's listening to the show. If you are, though, Kevin, hi. Cracks are further appearing in Wanda and Vision's relationship. The boys grow up again, which is linked to emotions. I kind of felt like this was linked to how Wanda had to grow up very quickly because of her emotions and having to mature quickly, which you do have to do when you have trauma in your childhood, speaking from experience. And we kind of start to see, obviously, the Sparky comes into the mix and you've got this perfect kind of family and she's got it all together. She's got her children, she's got a dog, she's got her neighbor, and then Vision is just annoying her and making things very annoying. So going back to outside of Westview, we have the first referral to Captain Marvel, to where Monica is incredibly uncomfortable and actually refers to Captain Marvel as her. We're not talking about her. So there's some bad blood there.
Yep.
How do you guys feel about that?
I find it so funny, the hatred people have for Captain Marvel, both within
Yeah.
and without. So, when someone mentions, where have you been this whole time? And she's like, I've got other universes. And in Far From Home, what about Captain Marvel? She's busy. Like, I feel like everyone
No one likes it.
in and out of the universe is annoyed at Captain Marvel at some point. And I just found that hilarious. Like, how have you managed to piss off so many people? Like,
When
I
you're
know
not
she
even
has
there.
so much to do, but she's never there. But I think Monica is upset. Her mother died and Captain Marvel, I guess we can assume, hasn't always been there. I mean, she saw her in the 90s, but how often had she seen her, up until her mother's death? And I understand, as she told us, I've got so many other talents to look after. Not everyone has an Avengers.
Hot sauce, bitch. Hire a virtual assistant,
Get some contractors in. But it's like, I just find it so funny. Like, everyone is pissed off at her, whether it's Brie Larson or Captain Marvel. I was like, bless. This is such a heavy mantle to carry.
I love that. I mean, that's brilliant. So going back into Westview, Wanda actually sends Vision to the office because he needed a distraction, which is when you get this really sad moment from the boys where they're like, he needed a distraction from us. So he obviously then, I was going to say breaks into, but what's his name? What's his colleague's name? I've completely forgotten his name.
Norm.
He breaks into Norm's mind. There's also, I just find it really funny that this is based in the 80s and there's a dial-up joke, and I literally remember having dial-up internet and it made me feel very old. I'm not going to lie to you. Wanda then obviously leaves Westview for the first time to face Sword, and the accent comes back, which up until this point I'd completely forgotten she'd had an accent.
I think Elizabeth Olsen did too, a little bit.
Maybe.
I have a theory that they've created this entire show Okay.
Okay.
Just to have the backstory that she learned English from American sitcoms to then explain away anytime her accent drops.
I mean, it's not a far-fetched approach.
I don't
Let's
think
be
it
honest.
makes some sense.
It does. So it's basically at this point she establishes herself that she is not going to let anyone affect her world. This is her life, and you can just bugger off. Basically, we have a commercial for Lagos, for when you make a mess that you didn't mean to, which is a direct reference to Civil War. I think I might rewatch Civil War in preparation for Bucky Barnes and the other guy, which is what I'm going to refer to that show as moving forward. The dog gets lost and Agnes says, don't worry, your mum won't let him get far. No, the postman said this. The postman's quite sassy. Have you found this?
Why does he keep saying that thing about being the messenger, though? I feel like
that's why I thought he was the witness. That's why I thought he was the witness, because he was like, oh, don't shoot me, I'm just the messenger.
He says it constantly, doesn't it? It's quite creepy.
It like 2-3 times, and that's why I thought, like, because it had no bearing on the story itself, I was like, oh, maybe he was the witness, but nothing comes of it, so I guess not.
No, nothing. Well, we don't know. And then Wanda and Vision have an argument at the end of the episode where you have this fantastic line, you can't control me the way you do them, can't I? Oh, and then it just, the theme tune starts rolling and it's like, yes. And obviously they have a big argument. And then one of the biggest shocks in the whole series occurs when there's a knock on the door and we see the back of someone's head. So I screamed. And then we see the front of someone's head and I screamed even louder. At first I was like, okay, this is amazing. Aaron Taylor-Johnson, I love to see him booked and busy. And then I thought, whoa, what is going on? As you can tell, I don't have very many cohesive thoughts about this moment. So please tell me what you thought when we got Pietro, as people are calling him.
I was just so excited for the crossover. I said, this is it. This is what has happened. We're finally going to get this crossover. And I started looking at like X-Men's actors. I'm like, are they booked and busy for 2021, 2022? Because I was like, how many we're going to get? So I'm going on Michael Fassbender's Wikipedia. I'm going on IMDb because I'm like, okay, when's the time? When are they going to film? I found it quite hilarious, that the showrunners were like, oh, we didn't mean to prank anyone. We didn't mean to confuse anyone. And I'm like, what did you think was going to happen?
I know.
I understand you wanted to excite everyone, but you have to know what Marvel fans are like. And we are like base level in comparison to some of these people and their theories. And
we are base level. I'm happy with being called basic on that stage for once. Yes.
Some people are literally like losing sleep and time and going through the comments.
It's like that It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia meme when he's got like the wall.
yeah, literally. So like I just couldn't believe that they were like, oh, we didn't mean to, it wasn't meant to be a prank. Well, what did you think was going to happen?
What did you think?
Yeah, because like, Karis, you sent that talk through between Jack Schaefer and Elizabeth Olsen, and I was watching that this morning, and even Elizabeth Olsen was going, I didn't actually, when we filmed this scene, know about the multiverse. I've only learned about the multiverse while filming Doctor Strange 2. So I was like, they really had no intention. No. And I'm like, if you had intention and no awareness, I get you do it as a clever nod. But like Lavonne's saying, like, how can you not think that people will expect, like, you bought the whole of Fox just to have X-Men back? Like, I thought you were going to do something with it.
I love that they bought the whole of Fox and Sony was like, you're not having Spider-Man. You're never going to get it. Yeah. So episode 6, all new Halloween spooktacular. This is probably my least favourite episode, actually. When I was rewatching it, I just felt like this was quite long and there wasn't a lot of action going on in it. But it's 90s, so it's Malcolm in the Middle, which was actually quite lovely. I felt like being thrown back here.
And Bikini, like Kathleen Hanna from Bikini Kill did the...
Yes. I do feel like, and obviously we'll explore that when we get to the episode, that it really is a love letter to the American sitcom. And as the non-Americans, I think we can probably look at that and like it's quite a nice thing to reflect back on, and how like we ourselves probably pitched ourselves in American sitcoms. Neha, I know you and I have discussed this on the podcast before when we look at like the all-American high school, and that's like what we base our like aspirations on sometimes, or our expectations of school and relationships and things like that. So there's a nice little nod here to the comics that Vision and Wanda are in their original costumes. More sarcasms from Vision when he says there's nothing else in his closet. There's testing from Wanda on Pietro where she's asking him, you know, oh, do you remember when this happened? And he actually says, you're testing me. There's a Kick-Ass reference. Is this another crossover?
Good. So
Allegedly,
good.
that was by accident. I
No,
read it.
Really?
Yeah. But I'm just not buying anything.
I don't believe any of these things they're doing. That had to be. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're getting to the point where Disney is going to own everything. You can probably have a crossover between Twilight and Spider-Man. Like, it's going to get to that point. I will say Evan Peters is brilliant in this episode. He is fantastic. And I haven't seen Evan Peters outside of the American Horror Story much. Like, I know he's done indie films here and there.
Yes.
And
Pose.
What was that? What was the last one? Was he in Pose?
He was in Pose. The
I didn't
first
know he was
was
in
in Pose.
Pose. I did. Oh, of course he's Ryan Murphy's love child, isn't he? Of course he is. Vision
Set up
goes
that college fund, Ryan.
Oh my gosh, don't.
I knew you were going to bring that up. Receipts, Ryan. Receipts. Vision goes to the edge of town here, where obviously he bumps into Agnes, and we discover in this episode that he cannot survive outside of Westview. We also discover that the twins have powers. We also discover that Westview has now expanded and soaks up everyone. And this, for me, I was really excited by this. And Lauren, I know you were as well, because we were like, oh, Darcy's going to be in Westview, which obviously we know later was a crock of shit because she was hardly in the show. But the advert in this is for is the one with the shark. And a lot of people have said that it's Agnes soaking up Wanda's powers. Again, when I watched it, I just thought it was a cute shark and a yogurt
That really
program.
creeped me out, that one.
It was weird.
But then it's like a snack for survivors, your magic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it literally was telling you what Agnes is going to do, which was very clever. Like it was like quite daring actually for them to put that large of a foreshadowing on it, because my friend, like, she would always send me like the TikTok theories, and these people were like, yeah, this entire thing, like, this is exactly what's going to happen, and here's your 60-second video to show you why. it was very brave of them to kind of do that. But again, like, we don't read every single comic available, so for us it was kind of like, okay, so that's a bit shifty. Like, it was nice as a sort of teaser. Just the diehard fans
just looking into things left, right and centre. Episode 7 is called Breaking the Fourth Wall. So this is set in the noughties with a modern family office vibe, which was obviously lovely for us as we love The Office.
But also they reference Happy Endings, which is the most underrated TV sitcom, because the wrote on it. Yeah, that was the actual theme, like all the different ways of saying Wanda. Like,
I didn't know that.
How Happy Endings open. Neha's like, absolutely. It was the best show.
Well, you two are the only people I know who watch that show, so you would know.
Well, you are so lucky that you haven't seen it yet, because, oh my God, it is the greatest thing ever.
Okay, I'm sold.
I would die for Casey Wilson. I would die for her.
So there's a lot going on in this episode. The twins game is glitching. The milk is glitching. There is a comment that the Wanda says here where she says she's given herself a quarantine-style staycation. Now, this is probably filmed after COVID, but it felt a little too on the nose for me. I just felt like it was a bit strange. So Darcy is in Westview and she's teamed with Vision. What did you guys think about this? Because I do feel like Darcy was wasted in Westview a little bit by just being Vision's sidekick.
Mm-hmm. No, she was wasted. Like that whole, and then she was just like, yeah, exactly. She was just stuck in traffic.
Stuck in traffic.
I mean, they set her up to be this genius badass. Like you were saying, she corrected everyone, made sure they knew she was a doctor, that she was really smart, and she was giving everyone all the answers. And for her not to be sort of involved in that sort of final solution element was a bit of a shame. I don't know.
Agree.
Although I could watch like 3 hours of her and Vision just talking a load of crap and looking at the camera like Jim Halpert. Like, I really could.
I need to watch. I sped through this episode because I was running out of time, because rewatching a whole season when it's a Marvel show does feel like you're watching a very, very long film.
I got up this morning early to finish watching it on a Saturday. That's how dedicated I was to your podcast.
Excuse me, I've watched them all. How dare you?
I watched them all twice. And then I wrote a theme song.
To be fair, you have got me there because I did not do that. I do love that. The twins in this episode say they can't hear Agnes and she's very quiet. And it's funny, like you said, because even though I've turned this show on at the beginning, I was like, right, Catherine Hahn, she's a great actress, so obviously she's going to be a big part of it. I was still shocked when it turned out that she was Agatha. Like, I was still like, haha, like that Leonardo DiCaprio pointing scene in Tarantino's film. But other than that, a lot still happens. We have the commercial is for Nexus antidepressants because the world doesn't revolve around you. Or
Have
does
you
it?
read what Nexus is?
Yeah, did someone?
I have a quote.
Oh, she has
I have a quote that I wrote.
I have a quote.
Me with a whole note.
Look what I prepared earlier.
It says Nexus beings Nexus beings, sorry, my accent is horrendous. Nexus beings in the MCU basically are rare individual entities with the ability to affect probability and thus the future, thereby altering the flow of the universal time stream. These beings each referred to as a nexus act as the keystones of the multiverse and are crucial to its ultimate coherence and stability.
Do you reckon that in the next film they're just going to bring back everyone who died?
I mean,
this
bring
is
back
my
Vision
issue.
and the kids. But then I don't care about the rest.
Yeah. So in this episode, Monica also gets her powers and there's a face-off with Wanda. And she just looks so cool, doesn't she? She's just so cool. I love it. But probably the biggest thing in this episode is that we have Agatha's theme song, which obviously Catherine Hahn sang.
She only had half an hour to record that.
Is that good or bad? Like, I don't know.
That's very hard to do in half an hour.
What's like the average time to sing like
even though I recorded this theme song in like 10 minutes, but my vocal takes were not as good. It just takes a long time to like set up and get your like balance together and your microphone and get the feel for the microphone. If you're using the right microphone, like half an hour is not a lot of time.
I love it.
Yeah, great.
She pulled it out of the park. So it leads us on to episode 8, which is called Previously On. So this is pretty much flashback heavy. We learn the process of how Wanda got into WandaVision. A lot happens in this episode, and it gives us the exposition that we were looking for previously in the first 2 episodes. We basically find out that she's basically someone that looks up to American sitcoms for aspiration, and they've helped her through. And I think over the past few years, after the past year, it's been so long, I think it's a few, I think we've really honed into how comforting films and TV can be. And I really like how this was a representation of that. We also see her try to save Vision. And there's this horrendous line where it's like, I can't let you bury 3 billion worth of vibranium, which felt so ugly and jarring to hear. And it does kind of throw you into that point that these superheroes and these Avengers, they are essentially money to people, which I think we saw a lot in Civil War, like with the Sokovia records, like, and she was locked in her room by Tony. She was very dehumanized as a character because of her power and because she was a young woman. Like, they wouldn't have done that to Doctor Strange. They wouldn't have done that to Captain America. Like, they just put her, like, where was Captain America when all this was going on? He was just wandering around with his shield, like, but she was locked in her room with, I'm not being funny.
That old beard.
Well, let's not complain about that too much.
He looked great. I'm not complaining, but that's what he was at.
So we see a lot of that, and Vision obviously buys this plot of land, and we hear the Scarlet Witch reference for the first time. There's a lot going on in this episode, and I know that there's been a lot of memes about what is grief but love, persevering. But I really felt like we saw the 5 stages of grief for this, and I cried my eyes out during this episode because it really was a deep dive into the grief that we haven't really seen from the other films, like Endgame, and like after Endgame happened and people disappeared and people died, we haven't really seen the repercussions of that. Like, we saw a little bit within Spider-Man with Tony Stark and him, but we haven't seen a lot else. And I don't think we are going to, because obviously Black Widow, who even knows when that film's set or when that film's going to come out? We don't know. But I think this was the first time we really explored grief in itself in the process. Did you guys find that in Marvel?
I thought it was great too, because I didn't really pick it up a lot the first time through, but the second time through, I was kind of like, oh, it's very clear that Monica cares so much about Wanda and actually wants to help Wanda because she is also going through such horrendous grief, and they're sort of united in that. Like, she can almost, because then obviously that then is harped in the finale when she says, if I had your powers or whatever, I would do the same kind of thing. But It is just, it's like, that's because I read a quote earlier on today that they were like, they didn't really want to put a big villain or a big bad in it because grief was sort of the villain.
Yeah.
Which I thought was just really lovely.
I really liked as well that they did tackle grief. They did attempt to tackle grief in Endgame, but it became more comical because Thor, put on weight and became an alcoholic. He was dealing with Thor has lost his entire family, and it became, oh my God, it's so funny, Fat Thor. And even though he was dealing with basically the same things as Wanda, he just dealt with it differently. And I know it was done for, like I said, the comedic factor, but he really was going through it. So it was nice to see someone going through it and minus the comedy, just going through the raw emotions. So I thought it was quite adult for Marvel. So I really enjoyed that.
What we really enjoy is those post-credit scenes, is those extra quiet scenes where we actually see the fallout and we see them living their real life. I know essentially superhero films are just action films, if you're going to really boil it down. So they don't really have that space in terms of the genre for those emotional, sort of quiet, normal life moments. But it's what actually fans really enjoy. So this series is kind of like that extra treat of, you get to see them how they'd be in that domestic setting, how you've always wished, but dealing with the reality. And that's the big thing. I noticed in episode 5, actually, when Monica comes out of it, she says all I could feel was grief. And so it's very early on that they're kind of saying, this is what she's going through, but they do choose to ignore it. Everyone does, until reality literally comes back to bite them. So it was nice that was such a clear theme throughout. But yeah, there were still moments of comedy to make sure that those darker points really hit home. But it was just nice to have the balance.
I quite like that they use such a popular franchise. Everyone's going to watch this. Everyone's going to watch MCU films. I really like that they use that as a vehicle for dealing with something serious in a way that was accessible, because yeah, everyone goes through grief, maybe not in the way that Wanda does, where we make our own world and stuff. But on
have
some
you played
level,
The Sims?
Well, no, I've not. But it's that idea of grief in itself is very trapping and very isolating and very sort of, you go through all the motions of it. And I think they handled it pretty sensitively. I would have liked to see, and this could be something that they deal with in the next Captain Marvel film, but I would have liked to see more of a focus on Monica's grief. I mean, she did lose her mum, and we spent 5 minutes on it in the hospital, and then we just kind of moved on. And I get that it was WandaVision show, so maybe that's why they didn't dwell on it. But yeah, that's what I think.
It's a thing that affects everyone differently. People can die in your life that you're very close to. People can die in your life that you were close to, but were also very horrible to you. And I think that, like you said, this franchise has been going on now for over a decade, and there's so much death that's happened, so much peril on the screen, that we don't deal with it. And we see little moments, but they always kind of glance over it. Like Captain America, Steve Rogers has to mourn the death of Peggy, and then he just rewrites history and gets back together with her, we think.
Did anyone here watch Agent Carter?
I never finished it.
Okay, cool.
Because you're fuming. You're big fat fuming. Fuming
that he went back to Peggy, or back for Peggy,
but
or
did he?
Everything.
We don't know. He went back and danced with her, but did he marry? We don't know.
Yeah, because side note, they made a big, and this is an Endgame rant, I'm sorry, but they made a big deal with Bold Tilda Swinton about how they couldn't mess with the timelines because it creates a butterfly effect of all that, and then they just stomped on it in a dance scene. I was and him growing old. So I'm fully prepared. I would be happy if they'd retcon that, and
I'm interested, and obviously because the next film is Multitude of I don't know that
Madness
film.
of the Multiverse or something.
So
Multiverse of Madness.
That's the one.
What, Doctor Strange 2? One of them. So, grief is. We see so many stages of it, and Jade in the Round Pictures team mentioned something recently where it's when women suffer or when women go through a really bad hardship, why do they have to go extreme on screen with revenge and their emotions, and oh my God, my emotions and powers are so I'm unable to control them, that we see that a lot. I will say the last couple of episodes, I could tell that they were rushed. I could tell that they were done after COVID. I know that essentially they filmed from November 2019 to March 2020, and obviously they had to finish. So they went back in September 2020 and wrapped up in November. So there's a lot kind of going on, and there was a lot of kind of steps in there. The series finale, so Jack Schaefer basically said that they promised a huge finale to Marvel that would obviously blend into the next film, whatever that was. I do feel like they delivered that. Obviously, a lot of people, there was some complaints where, it was just too much and it wasn't a TV show. And the fact is, this is part of that universe. This is not an average TV show. But a lot happened. So obviously we had Vision versus Vision, or what did you refer to him as? Hex Vision versus...
White Vision.
I'm just not comfortable with calling him White Vision, to be honest.
Is that what he's actually called in the comics?
Possibly.
Yeah, no idea. Oh, he is.
Yeah, White Vision.
Yeah.
White Vision. Jesus
I
Christ.
absolutely.
It's not a race thing. It's just he's a
I just feel
robot.
very uncomfortable calling him that.
I love that thing where he was like, "Oh, they stole your ideas," and he was like, "Cool, thanks. I'll see you later." And
Yeah.
I love
He just
that.
like,
I have
yes.
so many questions.
I would do so. I'd be like, "Wait, I've got so much more to my life. What am I doing in Westview? Bye." Like,
I know, but part of me was like, is he then going to be in love with Wanda? Is he going to come back? Is he going to fight her?
that's
Well,
the thing.
this is the problem with Marvel. They
Rewriting
can't
history.
kill someone and they rewrite history. Same with Gamora. Like,
Yes.
same with Loki. Every time you say goodbye to someone, they go, "Don't worry, we'll bring them back." And that's why I never take any Marvel deaths seriously.
And yet they never, ever
ever,
kill
because
Hawkeye.
they will bring someone back in some way or form. They'll never kill who?
Oh,
Hawkeye.
Hawkeye.
Just let him go.
No, I completely agree with that, and it does remove that ability, because you mean how many films have there been where we've had to watch someone die, and you're just like, oh, and it just removes that kind of. I think the reason why Endgame was so powerful was because Tony Stark did die. I don't think he is coming back. Black Widow did die. But then
you got a
film. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
but
that was.
And even with Tony Stark, by the time you went 2 months later to watch Far From Home, you saw him. I know it was a flashback, but you never really say goodbye.
Yeah.
No, you
you're
never
going
say
to
goodbye.
see every single person again. No one has died. Well, we've literally not seen him again, unless it was obviously Pietro, but even then they brought him back in some way or form. Like, it's just ridiculous. Like, I will never say goodbye to a character at Marvel because I'm like, I'll see you next phase. Like,
Do you think it's fan service? Do you think it's to keep people happy?
Probably.
absolutely.
I think it's that, and I think it's also they never want to shoot themselves in the foot. Like for Civil War, for example, I mean, I have very basic comic book knowledge, but I know there's like 6 different versions of Civil War.
Yeah,
There's 6 different endings. Yeah, there's one where Tony and Steve even get married. I've seen the cover art for it. Yeah,
When Tony and Steve get married,
that's apparently like a gag version, but there's like a version
Oh.
where they end Civil War by getting married. Like, so
Guys, stop!
Anyway, my
We're
point
getting
is-
married.
my point is that like I feel like they never, like you say, they never really kill anyone off. They never really say goodbye to anyone because there's a multiverse that exists. They're like, we're never going to really cut ties because Disney, we can make more money, and B, fan service, we can make loads of stories. So I think that's kind of why they shot Vision off into the sky. They're like, we'll come back for him later when we've got a clue. So I wasn't mad that they didn't kill him, but I like sitting here now, I'm kind of more mad because they made a big deal of Wanda saying goodbye to him, letting it go. What's going to happen? She's going to bump into him in the street and she's going to get re-traumatized all over again.
Well,
like that was a bit unfair because she doesn't know how that ended. Like there was never a point where Vision went, "Oh, by the way, hun, I restored his memories and he's gone flying off into
Well,
space."
that's the thing, isn't it? We didn't get that kind of the wrap and closure from that. There was obviously there was that conversation about the ship of Morpheus, and the memes I have seen have been brilliant.
people don't
But
even know what that means. I
I've
mean, I'm
never
like,
heard
oh
it.
yeah, I get it.
Okay.
I did English lit, like I've never heard of that.
I did this in philosophy and ethics in sixth form, like
Right,
the idea
okay.
of this, and the because they chose the ship of Theseus to make it sound really fancy. The example my philosophy teacher used was a scene from Only Fools and Horses about a broom. Like if you replace the handle of the broom and the head of the broom, is it still the same broom? So I was just wetting myself because all I could imagine was Vision trying to use the broom example from Only Fools and Horses.
This was trending on Twitter a day after the episode. Now it makes sense.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
I
why,
remember
because
we
the
were talking about Broom.
philosophical idea, like that's the one that's most
I've
commonly
seen
used.
so many jokes. Like someone sent me pictures of the Sugar Babes. Someone
That
sent
was
me
the best one.
Someone sent me a picture of Kylie Jenner. It's just
Oh.
so so obviously the Vision's memories are restored, so that's kind of like an open-ended book. I'm not happy about that either. I think that we need to let's just hire another hot guy to come in and for Elizabeth Olsen to fall in love with. Let's move on. Let's normalize moving on after a partner's died. It happens to many people. Let's normalize that. And
Let's be decisive in our storytelling.
exactly. So we have the revolution of Ralph Boner, which after you guys have said that about the Winter's Protection, I am feeling better about it, but I did feel very bitter about it at the time because I just thought that's a bit of a waste.
I mean, if there was ever a moment, not to discredit obviously the amazing women they did have involved in the production, but if there was ever a moment where it was clear that this was made by a man, it was the fact that it was a boner joke. All this culminated in a dick joke. I was like, okay, thanks.
Disappointing.
You know what I loved though was the 2 legs under, like the 2 feet under the car, like the Wicked Witch of the West.
Yes.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
I love that.
reference.
I love that.
Also, when Jimmy takes his handcuffs off and then he goes like flourish like Vision, I was like,
Honest to God, Randall Park did an amazing job in this show, and I really, really hope that he's a larger role in the universe moving
I just want
forward.
to hug him. I just love his face.
I want to get to the point where people stop talking about Randall Park as Asian Jim, because he has.
Yes, still.
He's not
much.
like.
And that was
stop. The
like
joke's
nearly
gone.
10 years ago or something like that. Like probably 2011 when that episode came out. I reckon it was season 5, so it probably is about 10 years
It
ago.
was season 9.
And it was like a 30-second gag, and
I
that's
know.
what stuck. God.
Do you know what makes me laugh? On the episode description on Netflix, that's in the title description, and it's like on for 5 seconds. It's just so bizarre. And of course, we have Wanda versus Agnes, which is the big kind of show-off fight that we have. And the way Wanda deals with it, that she kind of locks her in the Agnes personality, I think was quite good, because it's kind of like, I'm going to keep an eye on you. I'm not going to kill you. I'm going to keep an eye on you. And obviously it opens up for Catherine Hand to return, which we're all
But then
very...
whenever
gonna
the
say-
hex goes away, does that what?
I think it's because it's a separate spell.
Yeah.
But again, like this goes back to the
okay.
whole, like there's multiple comics, because they were saying in interviews there's a lot of universes where Agnes is a mentor or a teacher. And so they're like, we're leaving the door open for that because, clearly knowledge she doesn't have, and that's a big problem for Wanda. So yeah, I want Catherine Hand to come back 100%. But yeah, it's that again, like there's the lack of decisiveness. So you're kind of like, is it a cliffhanger or is it we just don't know what we're going to do next?
I like the idea of her being a mentor. Like,
I do.
Because I can tell the way in which she will teach her will be very unorthodox. So therefore it will be very entertaining. Because when you watch sort of the ancient one with Doctor Strange, like she wasn't like, this is what you do. Like you have to figure out yourself. Like I love that sort of mentorship. So I really do like the fact that the door is left open. And I think because of the amazing reception to Catherine Hahn, I think it's almost certain that she's going to come back.
Like
I
a
think,
number 1 single.
yeah.
And to have a female villain as well. I mean, in the whole of the universe, I think we've had a handful. Maybe we had
Oh, Tilda Swinton.
Thor. Was Tilda Swinton the bad guy?
Oh no, I just wanted to say that.
Oh,
I love
yeah.
that Ashton just went full Tilda Swinton.
Kate Blanchett.
I'll let it go.
I'm going to change that to my Zoom name.
Or Tilda Swinton.
Well, Tilda Swinton.
Yes, I love it. The end of this episode is one of the most painful experiences. And I said, I think in the middle, I don't know whether that's because where I am in my life right now, but I think I said to someone, they can't take them twins away from her. That is one of the cruelest things they can do. And the way it's done is so heartbreaking, that she tucks them into bed and says goodbye. And it's when she says, thank you for choosing me as your mum. I'm going to start crying now. It's so heartbreakingly sad that around her, the world she built just falls apart and disappears, including Vision. And it's really, really heartbreaking. And for me, it's the boys that are the hardest part. Like Vision, she's already said goodbye to, but to lose children, yeah, people have said that it's only been 2 weeks since the whole kind of thing got put together, but still, that's a massive bond to have. And they've been through a lot in that time frame. And obviously she created them, like they are a creation of her. So she is a mother, that bond is there. They're not just people that just appeared one day. that's incredibly sad. And obviously then we go back to the beginning where she is standing there and creates the whole world around her, when Vision has that really lovely print where it's somewhere to grow old, which I thought was lovely. And I did think, but can you even grow old when you're like made of tin? And then, of course, we have the end credits scene. There's two. Of course, there's two. One, of course, is Monica and the Skrull, which is basically leading on to Captain Marvel 2. Not much to give us there, but we can obviously assume that that's going to be a very big dynamic there with a lot of flashbacks in Captain Marvel 2. And Nia DaCosta's directing, so it's very exciting. And then we have Wanda, who's in this gorgeous location that I need to get the TripAdvisor details off because it looks fantastic. And she is obviously reading The Darkhold in her astral form, and she hears the twins cry for help. So you get thrown into this, oh my God, they've taken her babies away, to, oh my
Marvel
God.
being Marvel, isn't it? Oh, someone's like, I think that's the quickest turnaround. Like within 5 minutes. That's the quickest
no, because again, that
you have to literally wipe your tears away and go, oh, I was literally crying for basically no, you got me in my feels. Like, what a roller coaster of emotions. I want to sue Marvel.
emotional distress.
Dear sir or madame. I mean, the show in itself is very much about grief. And Elizabeth Olsen said that this is the first time that she felt that a creator understood her character, which I thought was brilliant. It's a female showrunner as well, which I think had a lot to do with it. Matt Shakman was the director. So Jack Schaefer, right, who created the show, she's also co-wrote Captain Marvel. She's co-wrote Black Widow. 10 years before this, she didn't work. So she made a film called Timer, and there's a 10-year gap in her career.
She made Timer?
Yeah, so if you are listening to this and worried about where your career is going, there's a 10-year gap for Jack Schaefer there. What is quite sad, though, is that she doesn't have any current future projects with Marvel. And you just think, really?
Standard.
Nothing. Made probably the most successful Marvel TV show, because let's be honest, who the fuck watches Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
I forgot there was other ones.
I was say Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. though has been invalidated, hasn't it? Again with that whole retconning and messing up.
And the fact that Clark died.
I don't watch it, but I just know, what film was it? Infinity War, Endgame, or something completely.
Well, Sousa from Agent Carter ended up on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So
It's
like
all
there was this bizarre
big old mess.
Laverne. Yes.
Here's the thing.
I watched it because you remember when Agent Coulson died, and then he was in the beach, and I went like, just shut my laptop down.
Not today.
I'm not doing
absolutely.
So Elizabeth Olsen didn't know about the multiverse until after she finished shooting WandaVision and was then in Doctor Strange. I don't believe that either.
She's filming 6 days a week for Doctor Strange.
But also, just on that interview again,
join a union.
Again, and her like not knowing a lot. She said she hasn't watched the finale at the time of that interview, and she was really surprised that they put the boys in at the end. She went, "Oh, I didn't know they were like, we were on the fence about doing that," which makes me doubt that. And I'm going to break a lot of hearts. I'm very sorry. I don't think they'll come back, because the way that she was like, "Oh, I didn't realize we were kind of doing that," quite blasé. It makes it sound like obviously it's not a concrete part of any future plans. There's no plans for WandaVision Series 2. They've kind of said it's it's like a little capsule on grief, which means again, like obviously the Doctor Strange 2 doesn't have any bearing, which makes me really like in my heart of hearts, I'm like, oh God, is that in her head again?
I don't know, because I don't know if you're going to agree with this too now, but I generally think the actors don't know anything about the future of Marvel.
Well, so can I spoil something I read about Doctor Strange 2?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm probably not going to watch it. So
I mean, I'll probably just skip through anything.
Well, so there are two things. First up, I do think the boys are coming back, just because the meaning I got from Wanda saying, "Thank you for choosing me to be your mum," to me signals some kind of an awareness already. Whether that was, I don't think it was intentional, because like we've talked about it, Marvels don't seem to go in with any kind of intent for things happening. They just keep all the doors open. But to me, that sounds like a segue into what she heard at the end, where like she found them. And I think also kind of aligns with how she also created them. Like it happened really fast and they were just here, and they were like, so that's one thing. And the second thing is that the two boys have been filming for Doctor Strange 2.
Like valid, love that. Thank you.
I mean,
Not mad.
But,
Like,
but
very
again,
happy.
like, but again, like in like exactly what Laverne said, we don't know whether that means that they're
Yeah,
around
it could be a horrible flashback,
or
that
it's a
lasts for 30
flashback. Yeah,
seconds.
so we don't even know yet.
Because part of me wondered, clearly they're trying to set her up as a villain, which makes me mad as hell, and I'm not going to touch that. But part of me made me think, again, it's going to be that woman so deep in her feels, she's gone crazy with grief, she dives into the multiverses to find her missing sons, and now Doctor Strange has to put her back in her place. And I'm like,
See,
if that's the plot, I'm going to be fuming.
Yeah.
But again, if she finds the boys, cool.
I'll not root against her. Like,
Yeah. No.
Well,
No
this
matter
is the
what.
thing.
No
This
matter
is the
what.
thing. I don't think they understand, right? Not only have they put one of the favourite is the most loved characters into a film as the villain, they've put her in the film with a character that we don't fucking care about. No one cares about Doctor Strange.
the only thing about Doctor Strange that anyone cares about is bald Tilda Swinton.
Oh dear. Elizabeth Olsen has been very complimentary about Catherine Hahn in the show. She actually called her the pelvic floor of the show. I love Elizabeth Olsen. I love the way she talks about the show as well. And she says that she loves that Wanda has taken responsibility and accountability for her actions within the project, which I think is very important. They have said they have no plans for a second season. We polled our listeners to whether they wanted a second season, and 76% of them said no, they just want a one-off. 24% said yes. I don't know. I think that
Me either.
because I know production, I know how rare it is to have a show that does so well and how disappointing second seasons can be. You know, they call it that sophomore slump. I just don't think that we are going to revisit that. But I think, considering that the majority of us didn't think this was going to be any good and we were all blown away, I feel very sorry for the Falcon and Winter Soldier, because bloody hell, what a follow-up act. The bar is high. Yes, it's interesting.
I think I saw on Twitter that like a lot of people were kind of pitching Jimmy, Darcy and Monica having a sort of like X-Files style going investigating weird things. And I was like, I want that.
Yeah.
Like that would be so good. The dynamic's amazing. Hey, Disney, again, if you want to try and work in the mutant angle, they're looking into all the freaky occurrences. Turns out there's mutants. Hey, it would be beautiful. Like if I wanted another series, I'd want that spin-off, because I think like we were saying, WandaVision is such a great journey of grief and it ends in that acceptance. It does finish well. And also we've done all the decades of television.
Yeah.
Like
Give it another 10, 20 years and then do like Boyhood.
Obviously, next up is Falcon and Winter Soldier. And then, of course, we have the Loki series. And the next film is going to be the Doctor Strange 2. And like you said, obviously, the boys have been caught filming. Their Instagram accounts have also been heavily edited since the show came on air. So a lot of pictures have been taken off because Doctor Strange has been filmed in London and across the UK, because there's more to the UK than London, just saying. It's been heavily edited, so maybe there's more than we think, but we have to wait a fucking year. Originally, the plan was that Doctor Strange 2 was going to be out in May, so we'd only have to wait 6 weeks at most. So it is going to be painful, but we will see what happens.
Yeah.
But if they expect me to root against Elizabeth Olsen, they will be big fat shocked.
Yeah.
Just quickly going back to you saying Wanda taking accountability, I was like, putting up your hood while the rest of the town look at you after being traumatized for a couple of weeks. I'm like, did she? I think I would have done the same. I would have flown off too. They all looking at her like.
Part of me was like, she didn't apologize, but then I was like she said herself to Monica, she was like, they'd never accept any sort of apology. Like,
I think I would just write a check for everyone's therapist.
Just
Because that was crazy. Poor people.
It was that Michael Jackson meme, you know, when he's like leaving.
See, like the thing I remember putting in the group chat a couple of weeks ago that I was watching a recommended 5-year-old video of Elizabeth Olsen interviewing, and I thought she'd accidentally spoiled WandaVision for me, because she was like, oh, the thing I would love the most is for them to do House of M, where they take her children away and she loses her mind. And I was like, oh, what? And then see the way that all the whenever all the stuff goes away, you know, whenever all the parts come off Vision and all, it's like almost like jigsaw puzzle pieces. That references the comic book cover of House of M, which is now free on Kindle, which I've started reading, and it is not as fun as WandaVision. Oh, I love
You-
X-Men.
You don't endorse.
I would just so I love X-Men. It's like, I don't really care what Wolverine thinks of WandaVision. Or just Wanda. Because WandaVision isn't in the comics. You know what I'm saying? I'm probably going to still read it, but still.
Well, that wraps us up today nicely. I feel sad that it's over, and I think it was such a lovely thing to look forward to every Friday, and kind of opened up the weekend, I think. And again, it was just lovely to talk to people about a show, because we don't really have that a lot with shows that we watch. Also, binge watching is so much of the norm now, and obviously people have different lifestyles, and some people can watch 6 episodes in a day and some people can't. Are you all going to watch The Falcon Winter Soldier?
Mhm.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, I am ready for Sebastian Stan to ruin my life.
I don't know if I'm going to watch the Loki one, though. I'm really uninterested by that.
I'm going to watch it because I know the woman who is directing it, and I just think it's amazing that she's over in Hollywood directing Loki. I think it's amazing.
then
Shout
I'll
out to you, Kate. Shout out to you.
Sorry,
So, yeah.
Kate. I'll watch it. I'm sorry.
Sorry, Kit. I love that. Okay, that's all from us this week. We will be back soon with more stuff. I think we've sorted out our calendar for the rest of the quarter. And the next episode we have is on the BAFTA Rising Stars over the past 10 years. So we're going to look back to see.
They are
'Cause it's
so excited.
Look at her, she's dancing. She's dancing away. We've got episodes on Angela Bassett coming up. We have episodes on Viola Davis. We have episodes on sci-fi TV, so about soulmates. And we have a few funny ones in there. And we will be doing some episodes on Glee. Finally, it's happening.
I gotta get that rewatch on.
3 years into the show, we have spoken about Glee a lot in the show. You can probably have a bingo card. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being on the show, my lovely ladies. And I will see you all soon. Bye.
Bye.